So, think for a moment about navigating somewhere new. That voice guiding you turn by turn on your phone.
Right. Or even simpler, just flipping a switch and boom, the lights come on.
Exactly. Stuff we completely take for granted every single day.
But they're really the result of some truly, well, groundbreaking inventions.
And that's what we're exploring today, right? In this deep dive.
Yeah, you've shared a really interesting pair of sources. First, there's that broad look from Live Science, listing 22 world-changing inventions.
Yeah, a big sweep.
And then a more focused LinkedIn article that
Right.
really tells the story of electricity and, its huge impact.
Okay, so our goal here is really to go beyond just a list. We want to understand which ones were the most revolutionary, maybe some of the stories behind them.
And how they still shape our lives today,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Consider this your quick but thorough guide to being seriously clued in. Okay, let's maybe start with some of the really foundational inventions, the ones that laid the groundwork.
Let's do it. How about starting right near the beginning with a wheel? Invented around, what, 3500 BC?
Seems so simple now.
Well, yeah, but as the Live Science article points out, the real genius was the whole wheel and axle concept.
Ah,
You
right.
can think about trying to make perfectly round holes and just the right sized axle back then. Without modern tools, that was a serious engineering challenge.
It's hard to even picture the skill involved and the impact. I mean, it must have been immediate, right? Transformative.
Oh, completely. Suddenly, agriculture gets way more efficient. You can have complex trade networks popping up.
And travel, just getting around must have become so much easier. It probably changed societies entirely.
No doubt. Wheeled carts weren't just moving stuff. They probably enabled specialization, maybe even changed social structures.
And it's amazing, like you said, how fundamental it still is. You see that principle everywhere. Clocks, turbine.
Yeah, foundational is the word. Okay, what about something even more basic? Fire.
Oh, wow. Talk about a radical shift for early humans. Warmth, obviously. Cooked food.
And cooking meat, specifically, that probably had huge effects on nutrition, even brain development, right?
Literally. And just, gathering around the fire, social stuff. Protection from predators, too?
Its impact is almost impossible to really wrap your head around. And what's fascinating is we're still figuring out the timeline.
Right. The article mentioned that. It's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, Live Science mentions evidence from maybe 1 million years ago in Kenya, the Neanderthals, Homo sapiens. But recent finds in Israel might push it back even further, maybe 1.5, even 2 million years ago.
That is incredible. Puts our modern tech in perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, fast forward a bit. Something more. Concrete, how about nails?
Nails. Seems basic, but yeah. Before them, around 2,000 years ago in Roman times, which needed metal casting first.
Right. Before that, joining wood was way harder. Lots of complex interlocking joints, I imagine.
Must have taken forever to build anything big.
Exactly. So nails were a huge step. Then this shift to machine-made nails, late 18th, early 19th century, another big leap in efficiency.
And then steel nails. After the Bessemer process made steel cheap.
Yeah, steel wire nails basically took over, revolutionized construction again. It's funny, the screw might have been invented even earlier, but nails were just easier to make and use for a long time.
Good point. Okay, staying with construction. Concrete.
Yes. We think Romans, right. And for good reason, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, those amazing bathhouses.
So standing, using that mix with volcanic ash, lime, seawater. Incredible stuff.
But the Egyptians were using a simpler form, like a mortar, way earlier, maybe even in parts of the pyramids, around 3000 BC.
So the Romans perfected it, or at least advanced it significantly.
They did. But the key thing with early concrete was it's great under compression, but weak if you stretch it.
Right, it cracks.
Exactly. The real game changer for modern building came much later, late 19th century in France.
Yeah.
Reinforced concrete.
Putting steel inside it.
Yep. Embedding steel bars, rebar, gave it the tensile strength it needed for, well, skyscrapers and everything else we build now.
Okay, huge shift. Let's change gears now. How did we start figuring out where we were, navigating the world?
Navigational breakthroughs. Good one. Let's start with the compass.
Okay. China, Han Dynasty, right? Using lodestone.
That's it. That naturally magnetic iron ore. They knew about its properties for ages, but using it for navigation came later. Song Dynasty, 11th, 12th centuries.
And once that happened, boom, global exploration.
Pretty much. It spread westward, and suddenly sailors could head out far from land and know where they were going. It opened up the oceans, global trade, massive impact.
Okay, fast forward again. Quite a leap. GPS.
GPS. Hard to imagine life without it now, isn't it?
Seriously. This amazing network of satellites beaming down signals.
letting us pinpoint our location anywhere on Earth, basically. It's such a contrast to the old ways compasses, maps, stars, marine chronometers.
Which were clever, for sure, but just not as precise, especially for, say, landing a plane or finding someone lost off trail.
And the scale of it. What is it, 31 operational satellites now?
Yeah.
Built up from the original U.S. system.
Plus the other systems now, right? GLONASS, Beidou, Galileo.
Exactly. It's a global thing, and it saves lives constantly. Emergency services, police, and the fact that it's free for us civilians.
Yeah, that's kind of unusual. Thanks to Reagan after that Korean airliner incident in '83.
That's the story, yeah. Made a huge difference in how quickly it got adopted everywhere.
Definitely. But wait, you mentioned marine chronometers. We can't skip that. That was crucial before GPS.
Oh, absolutely critical. Think back to the 15th century, the age of discovery. Sailing was okay, but figuring out your longitude, your east-west position was a massive problem.
Led to disasters, right? Like that Scilly Isles naval disaster in 1707.
Exactly. That tragedy really pushed the British Parliament to offer a huge prize in 1714 for a solution.
And that's where John Harrison comes in, the clockmaker.
The brilliant, self-taught clockmaker, yeah. He won it in 1735 with his chronometer. The genius was it kept incredibly accurate time even on a rocking ship.
Which let sailors calculate longitude accurately for the first time.
Precisely. It was absolutely vital for safe, long-distance sea travel, mapping the world. A huge breakthrough.
Okay, from finding our way to powering our world. Let's talk electricity.
Ah, electricity. Now, the LinkedIn article really emphasizes this. It wasn't one person, one eureka moment. It was a long, slow burn over centuries.
Right, starting with the ancient Greeks noticing static with amber.
Yeah, static cling, basically. Then much later, William Gilbert in the 17th century started studying it more systematically.
But getting to usable electricity took more steps. Ben Franklin's kite.
Yep, 1752 showed lightning was electricity. Traumatic stuff. Then you had the Leyden jar around 1745.
That was like the first capacitor, right? Storing charge.
Exactly, a crucial step. But the really big one for getting current was Alessandro Volta in 1800.
The voltaic pile, the first battery.
The very first battery, just copper and zinc discs separated by cloth soaked in salt water. Seems so simple, but it produced the first continuous, stable electric current. Amazing.
And Cruikshank improved it soon after, apparently.
Yeah, the trough battery, a more practical design. These were huge leaps.
And then Michael Faraday, he figured out how to generate electricity.
Yes, his work on electromagnetic induction in the early 19th century was key. Basically, how moving magnets near wires creates current. That led directly to the first electric generator, turning motion into electricity.
Okay, so we've got storage, continuous current, generation. Now we need something to do with it. Light bulb time.
Edison time, around 1879. Now, others were experimenting with electric lights.
But Edison made the practical one, right? The one that lasted.
Exactly. He developed a practical, long-lasting bulb, and this is crucial to the whole system. The power stations, the wiring,
Yeah.
the infrastructure to actually use it.
Made it a reality for everyday life. And the Life Science article mentioned an odd side effect, changing sleep patterns.
Yeah. Suddenly you could push back the night, work longer hours, socialize later. It fundamentally changed human activity patterns.
Wow. And the broader impacts. I mean, the LinkedIn article really spells it out.
Oh, it's staggering. It powered the second industrial revolution. It made modern communication possible. Telegraph, telephone, eventually the internet, medical advances,
Imaging, therapies.
modern transport, electric trains, now cars. It transformed homes, workplaces, lighting, heating, automation. It's hard to even list it all. It underpins pretty much everything now.
Okay, let's shift to communication itself. Sharing information. The printing press.
Gutenberg, mid-15th century, a truly revolutionary invention.
The key was the movable type, right? But specifically his hand mold for making the letters quickly and uniformly.
Yes, that and the press mechanism itself for transferring the ink, linseed, oil, and soot apparently efficiently to paper.
And the impact was just explosive, wasn't it?
Completely. Suddenly, books could be made way, way faster and cheaper. They estimate millions of books were printed in Europe by 1500, just decades later.
Wow. So knowledge spread like wildfire?
Exactly. Wider access to the Bible, for instance, played a huge role in the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther's 95 Theses. The printing press got the word out. It democratized information, challenged authority. Huge.
Okay, next communication leap. The telephone.
Alexander Graham Bell got the first patent March 7th, 1876. And that famous first call, Mr. Watson, come here.
Right. And his background was interesting too, wasn't it? His father worked in speech, his mother had hearing loss, his wife was deaf.
Yeah, definitely influences there. And the telephone just took off incredibly quickly. It totally changed business personal communication.
Just the idea of talking to someone instantly, miles away, must have felt like magic.
For sure. Apparently, when he died, they had a moment of silence across the U.S. phone network. Shows the impact.
That's powerful. Okay, now the really big one for our era, the internet.
The internet. It started with ARPANET, right? U.S. Defense Department project in the 60s.
And they pioneered packet switching,
It's
breaking
a-
data into chunks.
Yep, Lawrence Roberts was key there. Makes the network way more efficient and robust if bits can take different paths. Then in the 70s, Kahn and Cerf developed TCP/IP.
The basic rules of the road for the internet.
Exactly. The fundamental protocols that still run things today. But the internet we use, that really comes down to Tim Berners-Lee.
At CERN, 1989, the World Wide Web.
Right. He brilliantly merged computers, networks, and this idea of hypertext clickable links into one easy-to-use system. That's what opened the floodgates and made the internet accessible to, well, everyone. Connected the whole world. Unprecedented.
Which leads us pretty smoothly to smartphones.
The pocket-sized supercomputers.
Yeah.
They've totally changed personal tech.
When did they really start? There were early attempts, right? Like that IBM Simon in 94.
Yeah, email, organizer,
Yeah.
then BlackBerry in 2000 got mobile web browsing going. Stepping stones.
But the iPhone in 2007, that feels like the real turning point, the touchscreen.
Arguably, yeah. That intuitive design really set the standard, and smartphones just became this central hub, didn't they?
Totally. Launchpad for social media, messaging. It's like they crammed everything into one device. Phone, computer, camera, map, wallet.
Music player, organizer. Yeah, converged technology.
Okay, let's pivot to maybe the most important category. Health and well-being. Penicillin.
Ah, yes. Alexander Fleming, 1928. That classic story of the accidental discovery.
Mold contaminating a petri dish of bacteria, and the mold was killing the bacteria.
Right. The Penicillium fungus. But finding it was just the start. Purifying it, turning it into a usable drug that took years of work by others.
But once they did and got mass production going by 1944, just in time for WWII.
Saved countless lives. A true game changer against bacterial infections. It's interesting, that stat about allergies. Maybe 1 in 10 report one, but many aren't true allergies.
Good to know. Okay, next, contraceptives.
A really profound impact on society, enabling, well, sex more for leisure than just procreation, allowing people to choose family size.
Which affects living standards, population growth, huge social shifts.
Absolutely. Condoms have been around in some form for ages, but rubber ones in the 19th century were a step up. And the big one, the pill. FDA approved in the U.S. in 1960.
And it took off fast. Over 6.5 million users by 65.
Yeah, huge adoption.
Hey.
It fundamentally changed things, especially for women. And the research continues, right? New methods. Even talk of a male pill.
Always evolving. Okay, we absolutely have to talk about vaccines.
Oh, unquestionably one of the greatest public health triumphs ever. The WHO estimates they save 2 to 3 million lives every single year.
That's staggering. And it goes way back, doesn't it? A rudimentary inoculation in 10th century China.
Yeah, for smallpox.
Yeah.
But modern immunology really starts with Edward Jenner, 1796, using cowpox to protect against smallpox.
The famous story of inoculating the boy.
Exactly. And that led eventually to the complete eradication of smallpox globally by 1980. A monumental achievement. And of course, we've seen incredible vaccine development recently with coronavirus.
Vaccines are just fundamental to modern health. Okay, another accidental discovery. X-rays.
Wilhelm Röntgen, 1895. Mucking about with cathode ray tubes.
And notices this weird radiation going through stuff, revealing bones.
Yeah, saw the bones in his own hand on a fluorescent screen. The medical potential was obvious almost immediately.
Within a year, they were using them for diagnosis.
Yep, led to the whole field of radiology. Now it's essential for diagnosing fractures, tumors, all sorts of internal problems.
Yeah.
Hard to imagine medicine without it,
Okay, one more in health. The magnifying glass. Seems simple.
but pretty important.
Yeah.
Roger Bacon gets credit around 1268, building on earlier work by Muslim scholars on optics.
But the article mentions even earlier evidence. Egyptians using crystals for vision, 700 BC.
Yeah, hints of using basic optics to enhance vision go way back. Shows that drive to see better, understand more.
Okay, we've covered a lot. Let's hit a few other really significant inventions that didn't quite fit those categories. Internal combustion engine.
Right. The heart of so much modern transport and industry. The basic idea. Burn fuel inside, the hot gas pushes a piston, turns chemical energy into motion.
Took decades to perfect, though, right? Late 19th century for the modern form.
Yeah, lots of engineering.
Yeah.
But once they cracked it, it powered the industrial age, cars, eventually airplanes. Understanding the four strokes intake, compression, power, exhaust really shows the ingenuity.
Okay, how about keeping things cool? The refrigerator.
Another modern marvel we take for granted. People used ice in cold streams for ages, obviously.
But artificial refrigeration, that took pioneers like Cullen, Perkins, von Lind through the 18th and 19th centuries.
Exactly. Leading up to the first actual domestic fridge, Fred Wolf's, in 1913, driven by demand for fresh food.
And it totally changed food preservation, public health, what we eat.
Massively. Year-round access to different foods, less spoilage, huge benefits.
We touched on batteries with Volta, but maybe mention the lead acid battery specifically. Plante, 1859.
A call. It was the first practical, rechargeable battery.
Yeah.
And remarkably, the basic tech is still used in almost every car today.
Incredible staying power. Okay, flight, the airplane.
A dream for centuries. Started with hot air balloons, Montgolfier brothers, 1783, then gliders, like George Cayley's work.
But powered controlled flight. That was the Wright brothers, 1903, Kitty Hawk.
That was the moment. Inspired by watching birds, apparently. Their first plane had, what, a 32-foot wingspan?
The key was controlled flight, right? Not just getting airborne.
Exactly. Stability and control.
Right.
That's what they cracked. And it shrunk the world.
Okay, one last one, maybe more complex. Nuclear energy.
Yeah, starts with Fermi in the 30s, figuring out nuclear fission splitting atoms.
Which led to the first chain reaction, then the first power plants in the 50s, Idaho, Russia, then Shippingport, PA.
And it still provides a decent chunk of global electricity, around 10%.
But it comes with challenges.
Definitely.
Hmm.
Fission creates radioactive waste, which is hard to dispose of safely. And the risk of accidents, like Chernobyl or Fukushima, is always a concern.
But there's hope for fusion power. Cleaner.
That's the long-term goal, smashing atoms together instead of splitting them. Much cleaner, potentially limitless energy. There was that small breakthrough reported in 2022, achieving net energy gain for a moment. Still a long way off, but promising.
Wow. Okay. Just thinking back over all of that, the sheer range of these inventions, the way they build on each other, it's kind of mind-blowing.
It really is. It just hammers home how human curiosity, ingenuity, maybe a bit of luck sometimes, drives everything forward.
Yeah. And some of those connections are amazing, like the long, slow path to understanding electricity or how much engineering went into something seemingly simple like the wheel early on. Those are the real aha moments for me.
Me too. It's rarely just one flash of genius. It's
Yeah.
often years, decades, even centuries of work by many people.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's being cooked up right now? In labs, in garages?
What are the inventions currently taking shape that might totally transform our future?
Exactly. What breakthroughs are just around the corner that we can't even properly imagine yet? It's definitely something to think about.